In a mountain village in early spring during the Showa era, a light, overcast sky blanketed the area and cold winds rustled through the trees. On that day, Kenichi, the head of the Taketori family, spent a quiet afternoon with his wife, Chizuru, on the veranda. As Chizuru finished her chores and offered him a warm cup of tea, she spoke. "Ken, it's unusually quiet today," she said, her voice carrying a tone of relief. Lately, the village had been plagued by unrest, and peaceful days had seemed a distant memory. Kenichi nodded as he accepted the cup. "Yes, it is. Lately, the village has been consumed with talk of the strange illness. A mysterious disease had recently swept through the village. It had first afflicted a young man from a neighboring settlement. He had suddenly developed a high fever, lost consciousness, and fallen into a state of delirium before succumbing to death just days later. As more villagers displayed similar symptoms, fear and unease spread among the people. At first, it was thought to be a common fever, but the progression of the illness was far from ordinary. Patients experienced high fevers, lost consciousness, and, upon awakening, began hurling insults at others, trembling in fear at unseen things, and eventually collapsing from exhaustion. Medicines prepared by doctors and herbalists proved completely ineffective. "The villagers must be exhausted," Kenichi remarked, sipping his tea. "If only there was something I could do to help." Chizuru gently looked at her husband and smiled. "You've already done so much, Ken. Everyone in the village knows they can live in peace because of the Taketori family." Kenichi chuckled sheepishly. "I hope that's true." Just then, a knock sounded at the front gate. Rising to answer, Kenichi found Shoji, a young man from the village, standing there pale and out of breath. "Master Taketori, it's terrible. Someone else has fallen ill." Shoji led Kenichi to the village assembly hall, where a man stricken with the mysterious illness lay surrounded by worried villagers. Fear etched itself onto their faces. "Not again," the elderly village chief muttered, clutching his head. "This village may be doomed." Kenichi's voice rose, challenging the elder's despair. "Don't say such ominous things. Let's figure out a way to fight this together." "But Master Taketori?" another man interjected. "This illness, it doesn't seem like any normal disease. Those who fall ill all bear a strange mark on their bodies." "A mark?" Kenichi turned to where the man pointed. On the patient's arm was a web-like pattern, red and black, eerily shaped like a spider's web. "I've never seen a mark like this before. This isn't a normal illness. It must be the work of a god or a yokai." The villagers' murmurs grew louder, and some began to weep. Kenichi lowered his voice, speaking calmly to soothe them. "True, this illness is unusual, but there's no need to panic. Let's work together to find a solution." Though his words brought a brief calm, the villagers' fear lingered. That night, when Kenichi returned home, he found Chizuru lying on her futon. She had seemed healthy earlier, but now appeared pale, cold sweat beading on her forehead. "Chizuru, what's wrong?" He rushed to her side, placing a hand on her forehead. It was burning with an alarming fever. "I'm fine. It's just fatigue," Chizuru replied weakly, managing a faint smile. But her voice lacked strength. "Don't tell me." A cold dread spread through Kenichi's chest. Could the strange illness that had plagued the village now have reached his wife? "Rest well, and you'll recover. I'll fetch the herbalist," Kenichi said, trying to reassure her. But inside, panic swelled. "I have to find the cause of this illness. I can't lose Chizuru." The next day, Kenichi sought advice from the village elders. One of them mentioned a shrine deep in the mountains. The shrine of the white fox spirit. It's said to hold the power to quell calamities. However, the elder hesitated. His expression clouded. Those who go there are said to never return. I don't care about rumors, Kenichi declared firmly. If there's even a chance to save my wife, I'll go. Just tell me how to get there. Reluctantly, the elder shared directions to the shrine, based on ancient accounts. The path was a treacherous mountain trail, long abandoned and fraught with danger. That night, Kenichi set out alone. Under the moonlight, he braved the mountain path, determined to reach the shrine. If the white fox spirit's shrine held any clue to saving Chizuru, it was the only option left. I'll save you. Wait for me, Chizuru, Kenichi murmured, his heart a storm of fear and resolve. Illuminated by the moonlight, Kenichi trudged along the mountain path alone. The route to the shrine, as described by the village elder, was narrow and treacherous, overgrown with weeds and branches from years of neglect. Every step he took brought a chill that drenched him in cold sweat. Chizuru, I will save you, Kenichi murmured to himself, as if to steel his resolve. His words were so faint they were swallowed by the rustling of the trees. Eventually, the path opened into a clearing. Before him stood an ancient torii gate, bathed faintly in moonlight. Beyond the gate, the shrine grounds emanated an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional gust of cold wind sweeping through. This must be the shrine of the white fox, Kenichi said, pausing briefly to take in the sight. Moss-covered stone steps led up to a dilapidated shrine. Flanking the steps were two weathered fox statues, their presence exuding an almost oppressive aura, as though they were gazing down at him. As Kenichi climbed the steps and entered the shrine, a cold mist began to rise, swallowing the moonlight and plunging the interior into near-total darkness. "Who's there?" Kenichi called out, his voice trembling slightly. In response, a sharp gust of wind rushed past his ear, making him instinctively crouch. "A visitor. What business do you have here?" The voice was low and chilling, seemingly coming from nowhere. "I am Kenichi Takatori, from the village," he replied, his voice firm despite the unease. "I've come to seek help to cure the strange illness plaguing our village." The voice did not answer immediately. The mist began to swirl, and from it emerged the form of a white fox. Its appearance was otherworldly, its fur glowing faintly as if reflecting the moonlight. "Human, it takes considerable courage to set foot in my sealed domain," the fox said, its tone cold yet tinged with amusement. "But if you seek power without resolve, you'd best turn back now." "I am resolved," Kenichi declared, stepping forward and locking eyes with the fox. "My wife has fallen ill, and the villagers are suffering. If nothing is done, the village will perish. Please lend me your strength." The fox narrowed his eyes slightly, observing him closely. "If you seek my aid, it will come at a cost," it said. "To release my power, you must unseal the binding placed upon me and take on the fate of the village as your own." "Unseal your binding?" Kenichi repeated, his brow furrowing. "If doing so will save the village, then I'll do whatever it takes." The fox let out a faint snort, almost a laugh. "Do not speak so lightly. Breaking the seal could awaken others, not just me. Are you prepared to face that risk?" "I don't care." Kenichi's voice carried a deep conviction. "No matter the danger, I have something I must protect. I only want to save my wife and the village." The fox gazed at him intently, its eyes filled with an unfathomable depth of insight. Very well. To unseal my power, we must form a blood pact. Offer me your hand. Without hesitation, Kenichi extended his right hand. The fox's eyes gleamed sharply for an instant as his paw touched his hand. A searing pain shot through him, making him clench his teeth. With this, I am freed, the fox said quietly. Together, we will uncover the cause of this illness and save your village. When the pain subsided, Kenichi saw a faintly glowing mark in the shape of a fox etched onto the back of his hand, a symbol of their pact. You are now bound to me, and I grant you the ability to wield my power, the fox declared. The source of the illness lies hidden in the village's past. From what I know, it is the work of a yokai known as the Earth Spider. The Earth Spider? Kenichi muttered, his expression darkening. What kind of being is it? It is a yokai that feeds on human fear and despair, the fox explained, a hint of tension in its voice. Though it was sealed long ago, something has begun to awaken it. The illness in your village is its doing. So, if we seal the Earth Spider, will the village be saved? Kenichi asked, his tone resolute. It is not so simple, the fox replied. To seal it, you must uncover the history of the village and the rituals tied to its past. You will need the cooperation of your people. I understand, Kenichi said, nodding firmly. I'll return to the village and ask for their help. I will do whatever it takes to protect this village. The fox seemed to smile faintly. Very well. Let us go, human. I shall test your resolve while lending you my power. As the mist cleared, moonlight returned to the shrine grounds. With the fox at his side, Kenichi descended the mountain, his heart brimming with determination to expose the cause of the illness and save the village. Before dawn, Kenichi descended the mountain with the white fox and returned to the village. As they neared the village entrance, the white fox paused, its luminous fur shimmering faintly under the pale moonlight as it scanned the surroundings. The hour before dawn is the quietest for human dwellings, the fox observed in its calm, detached tone. But that silence won't last long, Kenichi replied, glancing back at the village. Even if it's peaceful now, the villagers are growing more terrified with each passing day because of this strange illness. If we don't act soon, the village will fall apart. The fox let out a faint snore. Do not let that resolve remain mere words. The Earth Spider thrives on human fear and despair. The more afraid the villagers become, the stronger it will grow. Then we have no choice but to act, to dispel their fear and protect them. Kenichi clenched his fists and quickened his pace. Upon returning to the village, Kenichi immediately went to see the elder. Despite the early hour, lights flickered in the elder's house, and a small group of villagers had already gathered. Their faces were marked with unease. Master Takatori, you've returned, the elder said, his expression a mix of relief and surprise. I can't believe you ventured alone to the shrine in the mountains. Kenichi nodded firmly and spoke without hesitation. I went, and I've gained the White Fox's cooperation. The cause of the strange illness is a yokai called the Earth Spider. The villagers began murmuring among themselves, their voices rising in alarm. A yokai? Then it really is a curse. The White Fox's help? How can we trust such a thing? The room filled with a mixture of fear and anger. The elder raised a hand to calm the commotion before turning back to Kenichi. Master Takatori, it's true that the White Fox is part of the village's ancient law, but relying on a yokai could bring even greater calamity upon us. That may be true, Kenichi responded steadily. But if we do nothing, the village will be destroyed. The white fox has revealed that the earth spider is the cause of this illness, and it has promised to help us stop it. At that moment, the white fox emerged from the shadows at Kenichi's feet. Its sudden appearance drawing gasps from the villagers, who instinctively stepped back. "Humans," the fox began, its voice low and resonant. "I have not come here to destroy you. My power exists to save this village. But if you cannot trust me, then choose your ruin like fools." The coldness in its words sent a shiver through the villagers, but Kenichi stepped forward resolutely. "I trust you. That's why I've chosen to walk this path with you, White Fox. Together, we will save the village." The elder, after a long moment of contemplation, sighed deeply and began to speak. "If Master Takatori is so determined, then we have no choice but to believe. I'll share what I know about the earth spider." According to the elder, the earth spider's origins were tied to the village's past. Over a century ago, rebels were executed near the current site of the shrine. Their lingering resentment and hatred eventually gave birth to the yokai. To seal the earth spider, the villagers built the shrine with the help of the white fox. But over time, the law was forgotten, and the villagers began to fear the white fox itself, abandoning the shrine. Kenichi listened intently before turning to the fox. "So, the seal that binds the earth spider is weakening?" The white fox nodded solemnly. "Yes. If the seal fully breaks, the earth spider will consume the village and regain its strength." That night, Kenichi returned home to check on Chizuru. She was still burning with fever, her consciousness drifting in and out. As he placed a hand on her forehead, her faint voice reached his ears. "Ken, Ichi." Her weak voice tightened Kenichi's chest with pain. "Chizuru, it'll be okay. I'll save you," he said softly, gripping her hand gently. "I have found the cause of the illness. If we defeat the earth spider, I'm sure you'll recover too." His words were as much a promise to himself as they were to her. The next morning, Kenichi gathered the villagers in the village square to rally their cooperation. "To reinforce the earth spider's seal, we'll need everyone's help," he told them. "We must rediscover the old rituals and rebuild the barrier," the white fox added quietly. "To suppress the earth spider's power, the villagers must unite their hearts. As long as fear and distrust remain, it cannot be fully sealed." For a moment, the villagers hesitated, but Kenichi's determination stirred them to action. They began searching through old records and oral traditions, preparing to restore the ancient barrier. However, troubling news soon arrived. A villager on the outskirts had fallen ill, and strange spider webs were found spreading around the area. "The earth spider is beginning to stir," the white fox muttered. Its words sent a chill through Kenichi. "We have to move quickly, or the whole village will be consumed." Kenichi clenched his fists and resolved to press forward, relying on the white fox's power and the villagers' aid to face the looming threat. Kenichi froze at the sight of the spiderweb spreading across the outskirts of the village. The eerie web, shimmering faintly in the dim light, stretched out to encircle the fallen villager, almost pulsating with an unsettling energy. This is the work of the earth spider, isn't it?" His voice trembled as he spoke. "Without a doubt," the white fox replied, its tone low and steady. "It has begun manifesting its power. It has consumed enough fear and despair from the villagers to reveal its presence." Kenichi clenched his fists tightly, realizing that there was no time left to waste. The ominous sight before him made it clear just how dangerous and imminent the threat had become. "We need to find a clue," he said, steeling himself as he moved closer to the web. However, the white fox stepped in front of him, halting his advance. "Wait, human," the fox warned, its voice sharp with caution. "Do not touch it carelessly. That web is an extension of the earth spider's power. If you come into contact with it, your very life could be ensnared." "Then what should I do?" Kenichi turned to the fox, his frustration evident. "With my power, I can temporarily seal part of the web. However, to trace its source, we'll need your insight. Wherever the web is anchored, it will lead to the earth spider's true form." The white fox closed its eyes and extended a paw, striking the ground with a deliberate motion. A faint glow enveloped part of the web, causing it to retract slightly, revealing its root buried deep in the earth. "So this is it." Kenichi knelt down and peered into the crevice where the root disappeared. The damp scent of soil wafted up, and he felt a faint movement in the darkness below. "Is it down there?" he asked, glancing at the fox. "Most likely," the fox replied with a short nod. "But rushing in recklessly would be suicidal. First, we must prepare to complete the barrier." Kenichi and the white fox returned to the village to report what they had found and proceeded to organize efforts to reconstruct the barrier. Guided by ancient traditions, the villagers gathered materials and assembled the items necessary for the sealing ritual. "This barrier requires the collective strength of the entire village." The white fox addressed the gathered villagers in a calm but firm voice. "Abandon your fear and unite your efforts. Only then can the seal be restored." "But can we really trust a yokai?" one villager muttered, his voice laced with doubt. Others murmured in agreement, their unease growing louder. Kenichi quickly raised his voice to counter them. "If you can't trust the white fox, fine. But what other way is there to save the village? Will you stand by and watch as everyone succumbs to this illness?" His words silenced the crowd. After a moment, the elder stepped forward. "Master Takatori is right. If we want to protect our village, we have no choice but to unite." With the elder's encouragement, the villagers finally resolved to cooperate. In the center of the village was a large clearing, chosen as the site for the ritual. Following the white fox's instructions, the villagers erected pillars for the barrier and placed tools and talismans in their proper positions. "The next step is to lure out the earth spider," the white fox said in a low voice. "Lure it out?" Kenichi asked, furrowing his brow. "The earth spider feeds on fear and despair. Within you, human, lies both a powerful resolve and a deep fear of losing your wife. By using yourself as bait, you will undoubtedly draw it out." "You want me to act as bait?" Kenichi hesitated for a moment, but then nodded firmly. "If it will save the village, I'll do it." That night, the village square was tense with anticipation. Standing in the center of the barrier, the white fox watched over the preparations, while Kenichi stood beside it, ready to confront the earth spider. The villagers remained on the periphery, each prepared to fulfill their role when the time came. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble faintly. The vibrations grew stronger, accompanied by an ominous sound echoing from the distance. It was the earth spider, moving through the earth as it approached. "It's coming," Kenichi muttered, just as a massive black leg burst through the ground. Moments later, the monstrous form of the earth spider emerged, its red eyes glowing malevolently. Droplets of viscous fluid dripped from its maw, corroding the earth where they fell. "At last, I've been waiting for this moment, humans. The earth spider hissed, its voice low and resonant, amplifying the fear of those who heard it. The white fox stepped forward, its voice sharp and commanding. We are here to seal you once again. You will no longer be allowed to threaten this village. The earth spider let out a mocking laugh. Seal me? You think your power is enough? It was the fear of these humans that brought me back to this land. A yokai that feeds on fear has no right to boast, Kenichi shouted, glaring at the earth spider. I'll seal you and save this village. The white fox turned to Kenichi, speaking quietly but with urgency. This battle has only just begun. To fully activate the barrier, your resolve will be tested. My resolve was decided long ago, Kenichi replied, stomping his foot into the ground. I will protect this village and Chizuru, no matter what. The earth spider's laughter reverberated through the village square, creating an ominous resonance that shook the resolve of the villagers. Kenichi clenched his fists, his eyes scanning the villagers as they focused on maintaining the barrier. Their hands trembled, and fear was evident on their faces. Don't be afraid, Kenichi shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Your strength is the key to saving this village. If we don't act now, the earth spider will consume us all. His words gradually steadied the villagers, who resumed their tasks with renewed focus, though the fear lingering in their eyes had not entirely faded. Well said, human, the white fox muttered beside Kenichi. But, with the earth spider displaying this much power, our time is limited. Until the barrier is complete, you must be the one to hold its attention. I understand. Kenichi took a deep breath and stepped forward, placing himself directly in front of the earth spider. The creature's red eyes fixated on him, its massive maw dripping with a viscous, corrosive liquid as it towered over him. So, you are this village's last hope. The earth spider's voice rumbled like an earthquake. How amusing. A mere human thinks he can seal me away. Kenichi glared back, undeterred by the yokai's immense presence. Call it what you will, hope or otherwise. But if I don't stop you here, the village and everything I hold dear will be lost. That's all that matters. The earth spider let out another mocking laugh before slamming one of its massive legs onto the ground. The impact shook the earth violently, and the barrier's pillars groaned under the strain. Come at me! Kenichi shouted, his voice filled with determination. The earth spider began to advance, its enormous body moving with unsettling speed. But before it could reach Kenichi, the white fox darted in front of him. The fox's body emitted a radiant white light, and a fierce gust of wind swirled around the earth spider's legs, halting its movements momentarily. I won't let you do as you please any longer, the white fox roared, striking the ground with its paw and unleashing glowing tendrils of light that lashed out at the earth spider binding its limbs. Now, Kenichi! The fox shouted sharply. Kenichi turned to the villagers, calling out to them. Everyone! Now's the time! In the center of the square, where the sacred artifacts had been gathered, the villagers joined hands and began to pray in unison. The elder stepped into the center of the barrier and chanted the ritual incantation. Earth spider, calamity of this land, by the blessing of the white fox, return to slumber once more. But the earth spider roared in fury, shattering the glowing tendrils that bound it. Do you think such feeble tricks can stop me? The earth spider raised one of its massive legs and slammed it toward the white fox. The fox leapt out of the way, but struggled to evade the continuous onslaught. Its glowing body flickered, showing signs of exhaustion. "White fox," Kenichi shouted in alarm. "Don't worry about me, human," the fox snapped back. "Once the barrier is fully activated, we can seal it. I just need to hold on until then." However, the earth spider's rampage grew more ferocious. Each strike of its legs shook the ground, causing the barrier's pillars to sway precariously. "At this rate, we won't make it," Kenichi muttered, frustration and helplessness gnawing at him. Then, the image of Chizuru flashed through his mind. "Wait for me, Chizuru," he whispered, clenching his fists. He stepped forward, standing directly in front of the earth spider. "I'll seal you here and save this village," he shouted, his voice resolute. The earth spider's red eyes turned towards him once more. "Amusing. Human, I'll devour you first." With a deafening roar, the earth spider lunged at Kenichi, its gaping maw aimed directly at him. At that moment, a brilliant light erupted across the square. The barrier had been fully activated. The villagers' combined prayers transformed into radiant energy, enveloping the earth spider in a cocoon of light. "This is the power of humans," the earth spider groaned in agony, its form struggling against the blinding radiance as it was pulled into the light. The white fox leapt into the light, delivering a final blow to the yokai. "This ends now, earth spider." The light intensified, engulfing the entire square before gradually fading. When the silence returned, the earth spider was gone. Only an overwhelming calm remained in the square. Kenichi noticed the white fox lying on the ground, its form faint and nearly translucent, its energy depleted. "White fox!" Kenichi rushed to its side, his voice trembling. The fox gave a faint smile. "Human, your resolve was true. Though my power is diminished, the village is saved. That is enough. But without you, this village..." Kenichi's voice faltered as he clenched his fists. "Do not worry," the fox replied softly. "I have not disappeared. Should you or the village need me again, I will return." With those final words, the white fox's body dissolved into shimmering light and vanished. The morning after the earth spider was sealed, the village welcomed a quiet dawn. With the first light of day, the lingering fear and unease that had gripped the villagers for so long seemed to dissipate at last. Though exhausted, the villagers gathered in the square wore expressions of relief. "It's done," the village elder murmured, as he pushed himself up with his staff. Around him, the villagers sat down where they stood, checking on each other's safety. Kenichi knelt in the center of the square, his body heavy with fatigue. Every muscle ached, as if weighed down by lead, but his heart was filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. "White fox." He gazed at the place where the radiant light of the seal had shone the previous night. The fox had vanished within that light, but it had protected the village until the very end, exhausting its power to save them all. "The village is safe now." Kenichi exhaled deeply, closing his eyes. Later, Kenichi returned home to check on Chizuru. She lay quietly in bed. Her complexion noticeably improved. Her fever had subsided, and her breathing was calm and steady. "Chizuru." Kenichi gently took her hand, feeling its warmth as a wave of emotion surged in his chest. Before long, Chizuru's eyes fluttered open. "Ken, is that you?" Her voice was weak, but unmistakably calling his name. "Chizuru, thank goodness." Kenichi couldn't hold back his emotions as he embraced her. "The illness is gone. You're going to be okay." "Really?" Tears welled in Chizuru's eyes. "You saved me, didn't you?" Kenichi smiled and nodded. "It wasn't just me. It was thanks to everyone in the village, and the white fox." Chizuru, reassured by his words, smiled softly before drifting back to sleep. Watching her peaceful expression, Kenichi finally allowed himself to relax. With the illness eradicated, the village gradually returned to its normal rhythm. After the success of the sealing ritual, the villagers who had been stricken by the illness began to recover, and life slowly returned to the fields and homes. In the square, the villagers worked together to dismantle the pillars used in the ritual, restoring the area to its original state. "So, it's really over now," one villager murmured. The elder replied calmly, "No, it's not over. The earth spider has only been sealed again. As long as we do not let ourselves be ruled by fear, it will not regain its power." The villagers exchanged glances, reflecting on how deeply they had been consumed by their anxieties during the ordeal. A few days later, Kenichi joined the villagers in visiting the shrine deep in the mountains. Something compelled him to return to the place where the white fox had disappeared. The shrine was still in disrepair, but to Kenichi, it seemed to exude a new kind of serenity. "Will the white fox truly never return?" he muttered. The elder placed a hand on Kenichi's shoulder. "Master Takatori, the white fox's power continues to protect the village. Even if we cannot see it, its presence can still be felt in our hearts." Kenichi nodded, stepping forward to stand before the shrine. He clasped his hands together in prayer. "White Fox, thank you for protecting this village, and Chizuru." In that moment, a faint light shimmered across the back of Kenichi's hand, the mark of his pact with the white fox briefly glowing once more. "So it remains," Kenichi whispered, smiling softly. "Perhaps we'll meet again someday." As the village fully regained its peace, Kenichi and Chizuru began to settle back into their daily lives. In the square, children's laughter rang out as villagers prepared for the harvest in the surrounding fields. "Ken," Chizuru said, offering him a cup of tea as they sat on the veranda. "It feels like a dream to see the village so peaceful again." "It's no dream," Kenichi replied with a smile. "This is the reality we fought to achieve together." "We must never forget the white fox," Chizuru said softly. "I'm sure it will help us again if the time ever comes." "Of course," Kenichi replied, glancing at the faint mark on the back of his hand. "We'll keep protecting this village, so its sacrifice wasn't in vain." That night, the village fell into a tranquil silence. In the distant mountains, the white fox's shrine stood bathed in moonlight. Deep within the shrine, for a fleeting moment, the faint outline of a white fox could be seen. "I am always watching over you." The voice echoed softly, merging with the stillness of the peaceful night.